Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rankus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you, everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
We'll bring you the expert interviews, insightful discussions, and practical tips to make motherhood a little easier and help your family thrive.
Please keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace the advice, diagnosis, or treatment plans you have with your personal healthcare team. Please have a conversation with your trusted healthcare provider prior to making any changes or implementing any strategies or advice you learn from this podcast.
Whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Here at the Motherhood Alliance podcast, we challenge the status quo, ask the tough questions, and offer a supportive community for moms who want to make an informed, holistic choice.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Andrea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Sara Lindgren, a registered nurse, functional nutrition professional, health restoration coach, assistant professor of nursing, and the owner of Inspire Wellness NEW. With over 20 years in healthcare and a passion for functional and integrative wellness, Sara helps people uncover the root causes of chronic illness and guide them towards stronger, healthier bodies. She's all about practical foundational habits like sleep, nutrition, and movement that empower the body's natural ability to heal. And I will say, we go pretty in-depth in the science side of these episodes because, like I mentioned, she's a professor, so she really knows her stuff. When she's not coaching or teaching, you'll find her staying active, enjoying family time on her boat, cheering on her 3 daughters at their music and sports events, or traveling with her husband, Tim. It's time to turn up your volume. Let's welcome Sara to the mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We are back here with Sara Lindgren. Welcome back, Sara.
Thank you.
We had an awesome conversation with her in the first episode, talking all about cortisol and stress, flight response, inflammation. This was such an interesting conversation.
I love that she gave us actionable tips that
Absolutely.
we can actually implement today.
And some science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so good. And there's so much more we could talk about, even just in that one topic. But we have a lot we want to talk about in this episode and the next 2 as well. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about gut health. And you say that all disease begins in the gut. What does that really mean?
So actually Hippocrates said that way back in the day.
Sure.
And we're really finding out more recently how true it truly is. And so what that really means is, and of course there can be outliers, but your gut is where you break down food, digest food, hopefully absorb nutrients from that then goes to feed all of the cells in your body. So if your gut is inflamed, if your gut doesn't move appropriately, if you don't have a bowel movement every day, you're not eliminating waste. If you have overgrowth of yeast in the gut, if you have imbalance of bacteria in the gut, all of that is going to affect how you digest and therefore absorb. And that then will affect every part of the body. If the body doesn't have the tools to repair itself, it won't do it. And you got to think, well, where do I get the tools? Oh, well, from water I drink, from food that I eat, from those nutrients that we're taking in.
Yeah. So, oftentimes somebody might think, I have a gut issue because maybe I have noticed I haven't pooped every day or, I have some diarrhea. But can you have gut issues even if you seem to be pooping normal?
100%.
Okay.
You can have gut issues even if you have no gut symptoms. And what I mean by that is you can have dysfunction within the gut that is affecting other parts of the body because, again, it's affecting maybe how you digest and absorb your nutrients. So, for example, I wish I had a diagram I could show everyone, but you have your gut lumen, which is the tube, of course, where things are moving through your gut. And you have an epithelial lining, which is just the inner layer of cells. And they're a very dynamic, very important layer of cells because they do a ton of different things. And those cells are held together by these tight junctions, if you will. And if those tight junctions become leaky, for a variety of stress can do it, going back to our prior episode, undigested proteins, waste particles, just anything in the gut, for example, that can then get through those different tight junctions. And what lies behind there is an immune layer, if you will. And you have a bunch of immune cells that are just they're ready to go. Depending on the literature you look at, 70 to 75% of your immune system, if you will, is in the gut.
Wow.
So if you have gut dysfunction, it's very easy to trigger that immune response. And again, if things kind of get through that leaky layer, if it's dysfunctional for any reason, it can trigger and then upregulate that immune response. So it becomes hypervigilant, meaning it kind of becomes on the prowl for just anything and everything. It becomes hyper-responsive. And then maybe these are patients who are frequently ill, frequent infections, histamine issues, a lot of different things. If it gets past that layer with the immune system, if you will, right behind that is your bloodstream. So things from the gut that maybe should have stayed in the gut, but were able to leak through that layer can trigger things in the bloodstream. Well, your blood goes everywhere. So now you have maybe some systemic inflammation getting set up.
Wow.
So sometimes people that have chronic migraines, it can actually be something that's going on in the gut. There's a huge gut-brain axis. The gut and the brain talk to each other all the time. The brain helps the gut know what to do, but the gut also sends signals to the brain, and it actually talks to the brain about 5 times more often than the brain talks to the gut. So what's going on in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. There's a very direct pathway to the brain. So a lot of times, for example, if someone suffers from symptoms of anxiety or depression or mood disorders, a lot of times it can be attributed to what's in the gut.
Wow.
So looking at nutrition and gut function can be a huge thing if someone has some of those neurologic or mental health concerns. But if you don't make that connection to with that person, they're going to think, well, you're not listening to me. I don't have gut issues, but actually there might be.
Right, right. Is this all like when we talk about leaky gut, is this what we're kind of all talking about, or is that something different?
It's a part of it. It's the tight junctions that hold those gut cells together that become inflamed. They become loose, if you will. And so I mean, that can lead to a lot of these systemic issues. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of other things that can go on, but again, when you have, let's say that you have a chronic stress issue and you're trying to make cortisol, kind of again going back to our first episode, that cortisol need is very, very high. And one way that your body will make more cortisol is it'll steal from other hormone buckets, which is why you can have maybe estrogen or progesterone or other hormone deficiencies when you have problems with your cortisol. But the cortisol can also steal nutrients, if you will, from those tight junctions and can contribute to then leaky gut. So,
Gotcha.
So is lab testing the way to know if you're truly having gut issues?
Lab testing is really helpful. If you have overt gut symptoms, of course, there's probably, you can conjecture what's going on there, but you can't necessarily know for sure what the actual problem is. Is it a bacterial imbalance? Is it leaky gut? Is it something else? So advanced functional testing is incredibly helpful. So it is really a gold standard of where to go, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily required for everyone.
Okay, and then the healing process, if you do have something going on in your gut, is probably going to be a combination of maybe nutrition changes, de-stressing your life.
Yes.
Head back to the prior episode, please. Maybe some supplementation. Is there anything I'm missing in there?
Activity. Activity will improve peristalsis, which is the movement of the gut, which is another reason, again, we kind of said before, being sedentary is seen as the new smoking, if you will, for a lot of different reasons. And one reason is its effect on the gut. If you don't move, your gut isn't as inclined to move. The more active you are, the more your gut is going to wake up, if you will, and move things through.
Are there certain movements that are more helpful than the others, like, trampoline or running or walking or?
Walking in general, just any movement is good. If you are a runner and that doesn't stress you out more than help you, then that can be a good thing. Trampoline or rebounding is kind of the new term, is really good for lymphatic movement. I would say probably more walking or some of that different activities like that is going to be a little bit more helpful for the gut. But rebounding is amazing actually for lymphatic and detoxification.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then detox is going to be a huge piece of this. I mean, you've kind of already alluded to it in that we need to be eliminating or having bowel movements, right? In order to be able to have a high functioning digestive system. So let's get into the science a little bit of physiology and anatomy. Can you remind us which organs actually play a role in detoxing the body and what do they do?
Okay. So your main detox organ is going to be your liver. Your liver has a couple phases of detox, kind of phase 1 and phase 2, if you will. It's going to take anything that is fat soluble and it has to convert it to a water soluble form, or conjugate it is the technical term, to a water soluble form before you're able to adequately eliminate it, whether it be through urine or through the gut. Now, your gallbladder is incredibly important in there because it helps emulsify fats, which just means it releases bile so that you can better break down your fats so that you can eliminate those as well. So people that don't have a gallbladder, it's not that they're not going to make bile, because bile is actually made from the liver, but they don't store it. And when you eat a fatty meal, and there are a lot of good healthy fats too, but when you eat a fatty meal, your liver releases a higher amount of that bile at that time to better break down those fats. So think of it like you're turning on a hose and you're getting a good stream of it when the gallbladder releases it. If you don't have that, your liver is still going to produce some bile, but it's kind of like a drip, 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 drip. So you don't get that high amount of bile that you need. So you don't absorb a lot of your fats. So the reason that matters is because your nervous system, your thyroid, for example, are very lipid or fat-based tissues, and they really need that healthy fat support.
Your brain too.
And your brain. Your brain is like 60% fat, so you really need to be able to digest and absorb those fats. So the liver is going to help convert things that are fat soluble to water soluble that we want to eliminate, though. Things that we don't necessarily want to keep in the body. So if you cannot do that conversion, you're going to have a hard time eliminating those. The gut is often referred to as the third stage of elimination. So if you aren't pooping every day, for example, you're not eliminating, you're not completely detoxifying. And that can become a big issue. And that does play a role in that stress response too. If you're not turning on that rest and digest stress response, your gut just will not move as much. If someone comes in and their main concern is, gut issues, or I'm bloated, or I don't poop every day, one of the first things I still work on is that stress response, because if they're spending too much time in fight or flight, then they don't get that communication from the brain to the gut as often as they need to really move the gut through.
Yeah, because
and eliminate the waste.
Because when someone's in fight or flight, like this is where historically, if you were chased by a bear, that's when that would kick in, right? And that slows down your digestive system, so that because you can't have to go to the bathroom when you're getting chased right now. You don't have time 100%. For that. But then if you're, like we were talking about in our prior episode, if you're constantly stressed, then your digestive system will be sluggish because of that. Is that kind of what you're saying? Right. Okay. Right.
And there's a thyroid component and things with that as well. But yeah, the stress response is such a big deal because you cannot truly detoxify if you can't get rid of the waste that you're creating. And if you can't get rid of waste, the body is going to be like, okay, well, what else do I do with it? So it'll end up kind of recirculating back. And eventually your body will be like, well, I don't want these things that I can't eliminate. I'm not obviously saying stool or waste is going to recirculate back, but things that we just can't break down to that component to really get it into that phase 3, the body will just recirculate it and it gets stored in tissues. Well, where are good storage tissues? Well, things that are fatty based.
Adipose,
nervous system, adipose, thyroid. Well, where are a lot of our autoimmune disorders frequently found? Thyroid, nervous system. So, it all plays a role because, the fatty tissues are like a sponge. They're going to hold on to those things. And that's where detoxification comes in. Every day we're detoxing. Our liver's always working. Even if it doesn't work well, our gut is always working. We're always doing these things. But if our toxic load exceeds our ability to eliminate, then we're going to have to store those things somewhere. And that can lead to systemic problems.
I do want to circle back and talk more about the gallbladder again, because what you're saying is the primary role of the gallbladder is to store bile.
Yes, store bile and then help release it when we need to break down those fats. Okay.
So in our prior episode, I loved how you gave some tangible tips. And one of the things that you gave is chewing your food more, like even to the point where it's almost a liquid, because that helps our stomach digest it better.
Yes.
If somebody, especially for somebody who doesn't have a gallbladder, is there something we can do to help break down the fat better in our mouths, or like preparing our food? Because obviously some of these fats, especially healthy fats like olive oil, is already in liquid form. Other fats are going to be like more avocado or even saturated, or if you're having something else, other different types of fats. So what can we do in our meals to help break it down, whether or not we have a gallbladder?
One big thing that we can avoid doing is taking things frequently. Again, there may be an acute or a 1 or 2 time reason you want to take something like this, but in general, we take too many stomach acid reducers. We're always reaching for the Tums, or the Prilosec, or a lot of those things you can take over the counter. And while again, acutely, if you do have a flare of something that really needs that, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if we take them chronically. What it does is it does reduce your stomach acid, but your stomach acid is there for a reason. It is there to really help continue that breakdown process that you started with chewing. If you don't break those things down before they move into the gut, again, your gut's like, well, I don't really know what to do with this. You didn't break it down very well for me. And again, that starts to inflame the gut, whether it's a fatty food, or anything else. So we can avoid taking those stomach acid reducers, especially chronically. Things over the counter like Prilosec and things like that, they're not meant to be taken more than like 6 to 8 weeks. I have a client that she's been on it for like 20 years. I'm like, oh my word. Like, okay, we got to get you off this. And when you're on it that long, you can't just stop it because you're going to get a rebound of acidic pain. I mean, you're going to get a lot of discomfort if you do it that way. So to help with our digestion, even if you don't have a gallbladder, chewing thoroughly is incredibly important, but also making sure you're supporting your stomach acid production.
Yeah.
It helps sterilize the food. I mean, nothing we put in our mouth is sterile, so it helps sterilize food. The pH of your stomach acid is incredibly low. It's very, very acidic, and it's that way for a reason. Your pH of your gut is not nearly that acidic. So we want to make sure that we're supporting our stomach acid. Something like apple cider vinegar.
I was going to say, I'm so glad you're mentioning this because I'm starting to do that. Yeah.
It's hard to take sometimes because it is very, it's not great tasting. But if you mix it with a little water or, dilute it with something.
I like it with salt.
Yes.
Maybe a little lemon and salt or something.
Yes.
Or ice, I meant. Like if it's cold, it's easier to take with some water.
Yeah. I actually just told a client that yesterday.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't do it. I'm like, let's try it over a little bit of ice, mix it with some water.
Dilute it with a lot of water if you have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But apple cider vinegar has so many good benefits. And one of them is supporting stomach acid.
What about someone who has acid reflux? Because that's when you talk about Prilosec or grabbing a Tums, to me, it's typically someone who is maybe having some acid reflux. So what's actually happening there? And then I've actually heard that even people with acid reflux should be taking apple cider vinegar, which seems counterintuitive, but what you're saying is it's actually good. So break that down.
Right. Well, so acid reflux is more of a symptom. I mean, I know it does have a disease diagnostic code or whatnot, but it's really a symptom that something's not working well with your digestion. So it can be something as common as stress. If you're not moving things through the stomach well, or it quickly enough. And again, you don't want to move it through too quickly, but you don't want it to just sit there either. What that does, if something sits in the stomach for too long, it can build up pressure, and pressure will cause reflux of things from the stomach up into the esophagus. It can be something as simple as too low of a magnesium level. Most of us are low on magnesium, and magnesium will help with smooth muscle relaxation and moving some of those things through from the stomach into the gut.
Side note, there's like 7, feels like 84.
I think we put our hand up at the same
7 or 9
time.
different types of magnesium.
Yeah.
What type of magnesium would you recommend for people to take?
So if they're looking, I just had this conversation yesterday too with a client. She really wants to support sleep. So like magnesium glycinate is really good. I think magnesium threonate is okay with that too. For motility, because she also has infrequent bowel movements, not a daily one. So magnesium citrate is better for GI movement. And I mean, if sometimes you can find them in a combination as well. The only one I would really not recommend is magnesium oxide. Not because it's necessarily bad, but it's got a lot less bioavailability. So you're not going to absorb as much as you will, because it's more of a salt-based magnesium. So you're not going to absorb as much as if you take some of the other types of it.
Okay. I have a question. I have another question on that. So like, if you take magnesium, so I take magnesium glycinate at before I go to bed, try to do an hour before bed. Mm-hmm. And then I've been dealing with a little bit of gut issues. So this is stuff I'm like soaking it in, right? But I actually just ordered magnesium citrate. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend taking that like in the morning or citrate, or what would you like as far as how often and things
So
like that, or how much?
It depends how you respond to it. Again, everybody's going to be different. For her, I mean, the glycine, I recommended one that had a combination in it. So I recommended her to start taking it in the evening.
Okay.
Now, if she wakes up like with cramping and, oh my gosh, I got to go to the bathroom, then we'll have to adjust that. But again, we don't know how she's going to tolerate it yet. Some people will take it in the morning, the citrate. But again, if they're just starting to adjust, or again, maybe they find their dose is too much, we don't want them running to the bathroom like in the middle of a work day. So that's the only caveat with maybe taking it too early in the morning is you have to kind of trial and error it. Like, how is it going to work for you? Is it going to make you go to the bathroom? It shouldn't be causing diarrhea, for example.
Sure,
and then it's too high of a dose, or maybe you got to back off on the timing of it. So it's hard to give you like a blanket statement of when to take it, but
sense. It's trial and error. It's not going to hurt you either way. It's just, you got to figure out what's going to work best.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then you were talking about ways to support our stomach acid.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So apple cider vinegar is an amazing one. Sometimes you can take things like digestive enzymes that will actually help. I mean, it's directly stimulating the pancreas, but it also helps then support digestion within the stomach as well. So that's a good one as well.
Do you take that before every meal? Or
usually, yes.
Okay.
Yep, if you're taking it before every meal. Betaine hydrochloride or hydrochloride, HCl, if you've heard of that one. Sometimes, again, you can get it in a combination with digestive enzymes, but betaine, HCl is very good for supporting stomach acid as well. Fermented foods are really good for digestion, like sauerkraut, kimchi, like kefir, those kinds of things. Like I usually, for example, I just did a story on my Facebook post. It's going to be gone by now, but about what I eat in the morning. And one of the things, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I'll have my apple cider vinegar, and then I'll have a spoonful of sauerkraut.
Yeah.
So, to help with
just
that.
Get it all done and over with.
Yep. It really sets your gut up for a good day.
Love it.
But yes, and then with the gallbladder specifically, for somebody who doesn't have a gallbladder, I mean, you're never getting that back. So that is one area where I tell clients, while most supplements are not designed, in my mind, to be permanent, there are some things that may need to be long-term, like something to support gallbladder function because you don't have one. So for example, ox bile is really good to help with that fat emulsification and things like that when you don't necessarily have a gallbladder. That's going to help you. Beetroot, artichokes, and you can eat those too. I mean, you don't necessarily have to take them as a supplement, but beets and artichokes are really helpful for gallbladder function, especially again in the absence of one that you can do to support.
Nice.
Wow. I'm learning so much. But I do want to touch on one more topic before we close out this episode, because I've heard you talk about the connection between estrogen dominance, gallstone development, something about like if you've had your gallbladder removed or not, hysterectomies. Like, tell us, what is this?
So I'll set you up with like a scenario that I know people that have had this exact thing happen. So lots of things that can lead to estrogen dominance. And what that means is your estrogen is higher than your progesterone. And again, certainly they measure in different amounts in general, but you want them in normal, for lack of a better word, normal amounts. You want both of those in very normal amounts in the body because they balance each other out. They each have a role. Progesterone is more calming, anti-inflammatory. So again, it has to balance that estrogen out. There's a lot of different reasons you can become estrogen dominant. Gut is one of them. So for example, I'm going to back up a little bit. When you create hormone, you use them and then you have to get rid of them. Estrogen is one of those. Your liver helps break down estrogen and eliminate it through the gut. Okay, so you're eliminating some estrogen breakdown through the gut. Now, if you have an imbalance in gut bacteria, or specifically if you have an overabundance of bacteria that produce something called beta-glucuronidase, you cannot eliminate estrogens as effectively, which means they circle back into the body and contribute to estrogen dominance. So that's one connection between like gut and estrogen. If you have high levels of estrogen, that is a risk factor for gallstone development. Okay. So if maybe you have gut issues, let's just say you do, and that contributed to estrogen dominance. So now you're going to the doctor and you're like, I've got these really heavy periods. I've got cramps. I've got breast tenderness. Maybe they even have developed a fibroid in the uterus, because those can be related to high levels of estrogen. So in the meantime, again, estrogen is a risk factor for gallstone development. So maybe they also go in saying, I'm having all this pain in my right upper quadrant. And the provider says, oh, yep, you have gallstones. So what do we do for gallstones? We take the gallbladder out, and then we can have all the issues that we just talked about.
Is that the only solution for gallstones?
It's the only conventional solution. I mean, if they are so big that they're not going to break up, you may have to get your gallbladder out at that point. I'm not a surgeon. I don't know that I'm not in those conversations, but I've worked in the ER long enough. When we had someone who had gallstones, they weren't offered another solution other than to get the gallbladder out.
About maybe some other options.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, again, like when they're so big, is there really a realistic chance that they're going to be broken up with all these different things that you can do? I don't know the answer to that. Right. But a lot of times that's, hey, let's just go take your gallbladder out, and then don't eat fatty foods for the rest of your life. Like that's what they're told.
Great. Yeah.
So again, estrogen dominance can contribute to those gallstones. So now I go in, I get my gallbladder out, and now I've got all these gallbladder issues that I don't really know are attributed to my gallbladder for the rest of my life because I wasn't given that education.
Wow.
In the meantime, my estrogen dominance is leading to heavy periods, and I keep getting these fibroids and maybe these cysts. So what are we going to do? Are you done having kids? Yep. Well, let's just take your uterus out.
Oh man.
So now
what a cascade.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now I don't have my gallbladder. So I have digestive issues. I don't have, and by the way, bile is very antimicrobial too. So it helps with microbial balance in the gut. So another thing you're not going to necessarily have if you don't have the gallbladder. So now I've got my uterus taken out, and now I'm going to have other estrogen imbalances because I no longer have my uterus, and I'm probably pre-menopausal age.
Yes.
So I'm too early to have all of these dysfunctions. And now I'm stressed because I'm constantly not feeling well. So my cortisol is going up, and now I'm gaining all this weight, and I don't know why. My hair is thinning, and what do I do?
Wow.
Okay. And then they come to you.
And they already don't have their gallbladder. They already don't have their uterus.
Yes.
And so
what would be your approach, and keeping this high level just for time's sake, is just what would be your approach in helping them? Like, what would that journey look like to help them balance some of these things when they can't get some of it back?
Well, I kind of go back and try to find out symptoms before everything happened, because really going back, because that can really help you with root cause. I typically will still look at the gut, because if they still do have a microbial imbalance that is because they're still going to have some estrogen, for example. I mean, you don't, especially as a female, you're not going to get rid of all of it. You just got rid of one of your main sources of it. And interestingly, especially if they took their ovaries with it, which they don't necessarily always do for fibroids, but let's say that they took their ovaries. That's a female's main source, of course, of estrogen. The other places you get it are your adrenals, which are also busy producing my cortisol. So if I'm really stressed and I'm prioritizing cortisol, I'm not going to prioritize that estrogen.
Yeah.
Where's the third place I can get estrogen? Fat. So if I'm now relying on my fat for my estrogen, I'm not going to lose weight.
That makes sense.
And if I have high cortisol levels, I'm not going to lose weight. So those are the patients that have weight loss resistance as well. So again, I look at the gut, because if there's an imbalance in the gut, that can be a root cause of all of these things. And then we also will do things to tame that stress response, because they're probably mentally stressed at this point. I can't necessarily go back and give them the organs that were taken out, but we can work on how their body is reacting to stress and try to tame that cortisol to try to allow it to the adrenals maybe to produce more of the estrogen, or allow, some of that kind of balance, if you will, to really start to realign. And so looking at the gut and looking at the stress hormone, and then also looking at some food nutrition, of course. There are some foods that will help promote estrogen, like flaxseed, anything that's soy-based, as long as they can tolerate soy. Those kinds of things are really good. Of course, it's not going to give them all the estrogen back, but it's something that can support it.
Nice. Wow. That was jam-packed. That was awesome.
Unfortunately, there's probably a good handful of people that very much relate to the person that you just laid out there. Maybe not the entire journey, but at least portions of it. You do offer a free 30-minute discovery call.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if someone wanted to just connect with you, they were like, I identified myself in this conversation, I want to have a conversation with Sara. How would they book that call?
On my website, inspirewellnessnew.com, there is a link right on there that says book discovery call. So they can do that. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. I believe on my Facebook page, I have a link where you can book a call as well. So that's another easy way to do it. Or I just have people sometimes email me like, hey, I want to book a call, or hey, I have these questions. And then I'll email them the link right from the email as well.
Perfect. Yep. And I know that you also wrote a blog for Motherhood Alliance. It's on your profile. It's called How Gut Health Impacts Mental Health, the Gut-Brain Connection Explained. So if you guys want to continue this conversation on your own, you can we'll link to that in the show notes. You can read through that blog, get some more helpful tips from it, and then you can connect from Sara straight through Motherhood Alliance website as well. All right. 2 more episodes coming up. I think each of these episodes could be at least 2 hours long.
I know. we
really
could talk so
to.
much about this. It's so good.
Yeah. But next up, we're going to be talking about autoimmunity. And I think this is also going to be a really, really awesome conversation because autoimmunity is everywhere. Now we're hearing all about Hashimoto's and these different symptoms that are leading to these diagnoses. And nobody wants to develop these, but can you develop them? And so we're going to be breaking all of this down in our next episode, followed by the 4th one will be all about peptides. So we are excited to come back shortly with the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.